Hello everyone, I hope you all are doing well. In today's video, I'm going to talk to you about object-oriented programming. When JavaScript developers hear the term object-oriented, they suddenly feels it like something very complicated. Some even get scared of it. But honestly, it's not that difficult. My main goal in this video is to explain object-oriented programming in such a way that even a beginner or even a young kid can understand it easily and get a completely clear idea about it. So, without wasting any more time, let's get started. Let's get straight to the point. What exactly is object-oriented programming, or OOP in short? As humans, we naturally think of everything around us as objects. But when it comes to writing code, we often forget to look at it that way. Especially those of us who are using scripting languages like JavaScript or Python tend to think in a functional style. Meaning, we try to solve everything through small, separate functions. That's because these languages were originally designed with a stronger tilt toward functional programming. But that doesn't mean object-oriented concepts don't work here. If we want, we can absolutely apply object-oriented principles in JavaScript or Python as well. But if we look at some popular programming languages like Java or C++, these were specially designed with object-oriented programming in mind. However, even in languages like JavaScript and Python, you can still make use of object-oriented concepts if you want. Let's understand this with a simple example. Suppose you need to build a soccer game. The game will have different players. Now, if you want to define a football player in code, in JavaScript, you can create an object that contains properties like name, age, and skill. If there's only one player, say Ronaldo, then it's not a problem. You can easily represent him with a simple object. But when you need multiple players like Ronaldo, Messi, Neymar, you'd have to define each one as a separate object. And that's where a big problem appears. All three players share almost the same object structure, yet you are writing them out separately. If that number grows, say 100, 200, or even 300, you'd be manually writing each one every single time. The first problem is you end up writing duplicate code. When you repeat the same thing over and over, the chances of mistakes go up. For example, while creating Ronaldo's object, if you accidentally type SIKLL instead of SKILL, it can be hard to catch. As you write hundreds of such objects, these kind of errors will increase and introduce unnecessary bugs into the code. This is exactly where object-oriented programming solves the problem. Now imagine someone suddenly tells you to add a new property to the player object. Let's say experience. If your code already has 100 player objects, you'd have to find all 100 and add the experiences property to each one manually. That's obviously tedious and time consuming. And that's a major issue. These are exactly the kinds of problem object-oriented programming was created to solve. If we had thought in an object-oriented way from the beginning, we wouldn't face this hassle because there's one common factor here. They are all soccer players. Ronaldo, Messi, or Neymar. They may be different individuals, but their core identity is the same. They are all soccer players. That means there should be a generic or common structure for all of them. And from that structure, each one will be created individually. And this common structure is what we call a class. The foundation of object-oriented programming is actually built on this very concept of classes. So, as we just saw, when creating individual objects, the properties of each one are basically the same. Now, if we want to bring all of that into a common place, we will need something like a factory, a system from which all players will be created. Imagine we have a player factory. All we will do is provide the data. For example, Ronaldo. Age 35, skill striker, experience 10 years. For Messi, the name, age and skill will be different, but the properties will still remain the same. In other words, even though the data is different, the structure or characteristics remain the same. And this is exactly where the concept of a class comes from. A class is the blueprint or design from which objects are created. For example, suppose we create a class called player. Inside this class, we will have common properties like name, age, and skill. But it won't contain the details of any individual player. It will only define the structure. Then, using this blueprint, we can create Ronaldo, Messi, or Neymar whenever we want. So, what exactly is a class? A class is basically a common structure or a factory where all the properties are predefined. And when we write new player, a new player is created using that blueprint. For example, if we write new player, it will create a new object where the name will be Ronaldo, the age will be 35, and the skill will be striker. Notice one thing here. The player class itself is not Ronaldo. Instead, it's the common structure from which many players like Ronaldo, Messi, or Neymar can be created. And only when we call new player, that's when the actual Ronaldo object is created. This way, our code becomes much cleaner and easier to read. Now imagine we need to create hundreds of players like before. We no longer have to write duplicate objects over and over. All we need to do is call new player, and a new player will be created instantly. And if there's ever a bug, it will be much easier to find because all the properties are defined in one place, inside the player class. Now, let's talk about the constructor. When we write new player in the bracket Ronaldo, 35, striker, the arguments we are passing here are actually the arguments of the constructor function. A constructor is a special function that lives inside a class and it gets called automatically whenever a new object is created. That means whenever we use new player, JavaScript automatically calls the class's constructor function. And the arguments we pass in like Ronaldo, 35, striker get assigned inside the constructor to this.name, this.age, and this.skill. So later, we can easily access them as Ronaldo.name, Ronaldo.age, or Ronaldo.skill. Simply put, a class is the blueprint and the constructor is the machine that builds the actual object from that blueprint. When we call new player, the arguments we pass go directly into the constructor function inside the class. For example, if we call new player Ronaldo, 35, striker, these three values, Ronaldo, 35, and striker, are passed as parameters to the constructor function, which in this case is expecting name, age, and skill. So what does the constructor do? It takes those arguments and initializes them inside the object, meaning it sets them using this.name is equal to name, this.age is equal to age, and this.skill is equal to skill. Here, this actually refers to the object that's being created at that moment. For example, if we call new player with Ronaldo, 35, and striker, then this refers to the Ronaldo object. If we call new player Messi, 36, and striker inside the same constructor function, this will now refer to the Messi object. In other words, this is a generic reference that always represents the specific instance being created at that moment. To put it more simply, this works like a nickname. Just as you might call your child by different names, baby, sweetie, or cutie. No matter which name you use, you are still referring to the same child. In the same way, this is a reference that always points to the specific object being created each time a new instance is being made. So the whole process works like this. Number 1, you write new player Ronaldo, 35, striker. Number 2, the constructor is called automatically. And number 3, the constructor takes the arguments and sets them to the properties of this object. And finally, number 4, a new object is created which gets stored in the Ronaldo variable. Now, when you call Ronaldo.name, you will get Ronaldo. If you call Ronaldo.age, you will get 35. And calling Ronaldo.skill will return striker. This is how the constructor works automatically whenever we use new to create an object from a class. And this newly created object is called an instance. That means Ronaldo is an instance or the real form of the player class. In the same way, you can create as many instances as you want. Messi, Neymar, Ramos, each will be a separate instance of the player class. So far, we have seen how the default constructor method of a class works. But it doesn't stop at the constructor. You can also write your own custom functions inside a class. When a function is written inside a class, it's called a method. It works just like a normal function. But since it lives inside a class, it gets a special name, method. For example, let's say we add a method called sayHello. Now, when you create an instance with new player Messi 35 and striker, along with the name, age and skill set inside the constructor, this new sayHello method will also be available in that object. So you can directly call Messi.sayHello. Since Messi is the main object or instance, you will be able to access that method through it. And when you call it, you will get a nice output in the console. Like, hello, my name is Messi and I am a striker. In other words, methods represent the actions or behaviors of an object. For example, a player object's properties like name, age, and skill define its characteristics, while a method like sayHello defines its behavior or how it acts. You can add multiple methods if you want, such as play, retire, or show stats. This way, object-oriented programming doesn't just keep an object limited to storing data. It also gives the object the ability to perform actions. I hope this made sense. So let's keep one thing clear from the very beginning. A class is basically the design or blueprint of an object. Thanks to this blueprint, we can avoid writing duplicate code, reduce the amount of code we need, and if we ever want to add a new property or characteristic in the future, we can do it in just one place. That's why OOP is considered elegant and it's widely used in building large-scale software. This is the basic idea. Now let's look at an example. Suppose your game has a class called human. Inside it, there's a constructor that will only take a name when creating an object from outside. Every human has 2 hands and 2 legs. These are fixed and the same for everyone. So they can be treated as static properties. And the name will come from outside when the object is created. Now you will notice that just the human class isn't enough. Because in your game, there are different types based on age, like baby and teenager. If you define a baby class, it will also have a name, 2 hands and 2 legs just like a human. But it will also have its own unique property. Let's say a baby is very cute. That can be stored as a separate property. Along with that, a baby will have its own method, cry, since babies cry. In the same way, you have another class called teenager. Just like before, it has the same 3 common things, name, arms and legs. These 3 actually come from the human class. But a teenager also has unique characteristics. For instance, being emotional. And because of that, teenagers often show a distinct behavior, like getting a crush when they see someone attractive. We can define that as its own method. Now, if you look closely, both the baby class and the teenager class have name, arms, and legs. That means the same code is being duplicated. To avoid this kind of repetition, object-oriented programming uses a special concept called inheritance. The word inheritance means receiving something naturally from ancestors or parents. Just like in real life, you inherit many traits from your parents. For example, if your parents are very intelligent, you likely inherited that to some extent. Or let's say your father is tall or short, you inherit that physical trait through DNA. In the same way, in programming, a child class automatically inherits the common properties and methods of its parent class. So now let's put that concept into practice. Suppose your main class is named human and then you create another class called baby. To quickly build baby from human, we write class baby extends human. Here, extends is a keyword that allows the baby class to inherit from the human class. This means whatever features the human class has, the baby class automatically gets them too. That's how inheritance works in code by using extends. So when baby extends human, it inherits all the common properties like name, arms, and legs. On top of that, baby adds its own unique property, which is this.cute. Exactly, the baby class also has its own special method called cry. This is how one class can take properties from another and form a new one. And this whole process is what we call inheritance. In the same way, the teenager class will work just like this. It will inherit the common features from human, but it will also have its own unique property, emotional, and its own method, crush. I hope this part is clear now. Now let's move on and see how to actually call or create these objects. So we have baby class and it's extended to human class. Now when you want to create a new baby object, you might write const Monty is equal to new baby Monty. This would create a new baby object and set its name to Monty. But be careful, written like this, the code won't work straight away. The reason is, inside the baby class, we never initialized this.name, but the name property has originally defined in the human class. When we create a new object, only the baby class constructor is called automatically, not the human class's constructor. So, how will the human class know that the name passed into baby's constructor should also be set as the parent human's name? To solve this, we need to call the parent class's constructor from the baby class's constructor. And for that, we use super method. Whenever you write super name inside the baby class's constructor, that name value gets passed to the human class's constructor. And human takes care of initializing it properly. Exactly that's the point. From the child class, if you want to send values to the parent class's constructor, you have to use super method. Without it, the parent class would never know that it needs to receive the value for name. So what you need to do is simple. Just call the super method. For example, when you call new baby Monty, the string Monty first comes into the baby class's constructor. Now, since baby's parent is human, that name parameter must be passed up to human. Otherwise, the this.name, this.arms and this.legs inside human won't get initialized. To fix that, we call super in the bracket name. When you place super name right above this.cry in baby's constructor, what actually happens is the human class's constructor gets called. And it takes care of initializing those parent properties properly. So I hope I have been able to give you a clear idea about inheritance. Today, I really just shared the basics and foundational concepts. But object-oriented programming has many more ideas beyond this. For example, apart from the methods we have looked at, there are also static methods, private methods, and private properties. Not only that, OOP is built on 4 main pillars. I only discussed inheritance here, but there are also abstraction, polymorphism, and other important concepts. If you would like me to cover those in detail, and if you feel this tutorial helped you understand things easily, then do let me know in the comments and request more videos. Also, share how you found this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like and share. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so and help this channel grow. If I get good responses from you, I will keep making more videos like this. And in the next one, I will try to dive deeper into the 4 main pillars of object-oriented programming. So don't forget to leave your feedback. I hope this video has been useful for you. Thank you everyone.